My aunt and uncle bought a cool old Victorian house in a small town about 40 miles away from Austin. It was a pretty, awesome old place and had a historical marker in the front lawn and everything. My aunt and uncle moved for job reasons years ago, and the house is now a successful bed and breakfast. Why anyone would pay money to sleep there is beyond me, though. When my aunt and uncle still lived in their house, their daughter and her young son also lived with them. Chad the son was about 7 at the time. One day my aunt was home alone. Uncle and her daughter were both at work. Chad was at school. The lady who cleaned the house had already come and gone for the day. My aunt was in the study working on a project or something. In this house, if you sat at the desk in the study, you had a clear view of the foot of the stairs. She was sitting down at the computer when she looked up and saw a young boy sitting at the foot of the stairs, staring at her. He was about the same age as Chad, and she assumed he was a friend from school. She asked the kid his name, and he didn't answer. She thought he was weird, so she told him he needed to be in school or to go on home. She looked down for a second, and when she looked up, he was gone. When Chad got home from school that day, she told him one of his friends had been in the house. He said, "No way, all my friends are at school with me." She described the boy, and Chad got real quiet. He said, "Oh yeah, I know him. He comes out of my closet to play with sometimes at night." Unnerved, my aunt and cousin told him to go play outside and stop telling wild stories. A couple of months later, my aunt was doing some research on the house and found out that a young boy aged 8 had died there of leukemia in the 70s. She found an old newspaper article about his death, with a picture she recognized. He was the same boy who had been staring at her from the stairs. In my hometown in New Hampshire, there is a 19th century textile mill that has been converted into a shopping mall of sorts, housing a variety of local retailers. When I was in high school, I worked at a candy shop that was located in one of its outbuildings, presumably either an office or a foreman's quarters or something. I frequently closed the store by myself on Friday and Saturday nights, and every so often I could hear what sounded like muffled screams coming from upstairs, but I didn't get too worked up about it, figuring it was just a noise from the busy street outside, although it creeped me out enough that I avoided going up to the dark, dusty, creepy storage area on the 3rd floor after dark. I mentioned it offhand to one of my co-workers one day, and she responded with mild interest but didn't say much else, so I figured it was my imagination. Then one Friday morning, business was slow, so I was bagging up something or other to put out the next morning. I suddenly had the strange sensation I was being watched, which was impossible because I was working alone and the only door had a bell on it, so no one could have come in without me knowing. I spun around, and for a split second I saw a distinguished old man with strange old-fashioned facial hair and very formal clothes. He disappeared immediately, but I remember his image more clearly than any other face I've ever seen in my life. I convinced myself my imagination was playing tricks on me. But the next day I told the same co-worker, and she got incredibly excited and said, "I can't believe you saw the ghost. I've been dying to for years, but I never have." Then she told me what she knew of the story. Apparently the mill as a whole has a lot of strange things occur, especially after dark. Lights flickering, alarms going off inexplicably, but this building in particular had a ghost, which had been spotted on a handful of occasions by a few different people. The owners had supposedly forbidden any employees who knew about him from telling other employees who didn't, which was why she hadn't said anything when I mentioned the strange noises. Her theory as to the screams, admittedly not backed up by hard evidence, was an accident occurred on the mill floor. They brought the injured parties to this building until they could get proper medical attention. The dude was probably one of the owners. In case I wasn't already terrified enough to work by myself after that, a couple of weeks later I was cutting fudge in the kitchen when a customer came in. I put the fudge on the display tray, put the knife down on the cutting board, and went to help her. While ringing her up, I heard a crash from the kitchen. I went in to investigate after the cutting board and knife had been thrown clear across the room. Two of my friends who work there swear that they never saw or heard anything strange. Still, shortly after, therefore, I quit to work at JCPenney. All the free candy I could eat did not make up for the chronic haunting.